Some games bring people together. Others take them apart. Tonight's story is about a strange black box, a set of rules no one could refuse, and a game that doesn't end when the last piece is placed. They say you should never play after midnight. But what if you don't get a choice? Welcome to Nightmare Vault. This is the game in the black box. Some games bring people together. Others take them apart. Tonight's story is about a strange black box, a set of rules no one could refuse, and a game that doesn't end when the last piece is placed. They say you should never play after midnight. But what if you don't get a choice? Welcome to Nightmare Vault. This is the game in the black box. Ethan had always liked strange games. He wasn't the type to collect Monopoly boards or keep card games in pristine shrink wrap. No, Ethan liked weird games, the kind you had to learn from photocopied instructions, games made by companies that didn't exist anymore, or whose creators seemed to have vanished without a trace. He found them mostly at thrift stores or dusty corners of flea markets. Sometimes they were missing pieces. Sometimes they had bizarre rules that didn't make sense. But that was part of the fun. He'd play them with his small group of friends, Claire, Mason, and Jordan, on Friday nights. A couple of drinks, a strange game, maybe some music in the background. It was supposed to be just another one of those nights when Ethan walked into Old Things and Treasures, a cluttered little shop tucked between a pawn store and a boarded-up laundromat. The shop smelled faintly of mildew and something sweet, like rotting flowers. The aisles were narrow, the shelves buckling with mismatched items, porcelain dolls with missing eyes, warped vinyl records, ancient radios with knobs that didn't turn anymore. He was about to leave when something caught his eye in a locked glass cabinet by the counter. It was a box, matte black, with no artwork, no title, just a single embossed emblem in the center. A circle of 12 small triangles, each pointing inward toward a dot. The emblem shimmered slightly when he tilted his head, almost like it shifted shape when you weren't looking directly at it. "How much for that?" Ethan asked the shopkeeper, a pale, wiry man in a cardigan that hung too loose on his frame. The man's eyes flicked toward the box, then back to Ethan. "That's not for sale," he said flatly. Ethan gave a little laugh. "Then why's it in the case?" The shopkeeper's jaw tightened. "Some things are better left alone." That would have been the end of it, except Ethan was stubborn, and the more someone told him not to touch something, the more he wanted to. "Everything's for sale at the right price," he said lightly. "Come on. I'm a collector." The man stared at him for a long moment, then exhaled slowly, like he was giving in to something inevitable. He unlocked the case, took the box out, and placed it on the counter without looking at it. $50, cash only, no refunds, no returns, and he hesitated. "Don't play it past midnight." Ethan grinned. "Sure thing." The first night. By the time Ethan got home, the sun had set and the others were already at his apartment. His living room was small but comfortable. Thrift store couch, a scratched coffee table, string lights along the window. Claire was curled up with a mug of tea. Mason was flipping through Ethan's record collection, and Jordan was scrolling on his phone. "What's the game tonight?" Mason asked. Ethan set the box down on the table like it was a magic trick. "No name. Got it from that creepy antique place on Holloway Street." Claire raised an eyebrow. "No name? How do you even know how to play?" Ethan slid off the lid. Inside was a folded black cloth, a deck of thick, glossy cards with the same circle and triangle emblem on the back, and a set of carved wooden pieces in strange shapes, none of them familiar game tokens. There was also a single sheet of rules, typed in a slightly uneven font. Jordan picked up a piece that looked like a miniature hourglass, but without sand inside. "This feels weird, warm." Mason unfolded the rule sheet and read aloud. "The game players. 3 to 6 objective, complete the circle. Setup, lay the cloth on the table, place the pieces at random, shuffle the deck, draw in turn. Rules, on your turn draw a card and follow its instruction. You may not lie, You may not refuse. End. The game ends when the circle is complete. Warning: do not play alone. Do not stop until the circle is complete. Do not play past midnight. Claire frowned. That's vague. What does complete the circle even mean? Ethan shrugged. Guess we'll find out. They set up as instructed. The black cloth was covered in faint, almost invisible markings that seemed to shift in the light. The pieces were placed randomly. The cards felt heavier than normal, and each had a strange symbol on one side and text on the other. Jordan went first. He flipped a card. Trade seats with the player to your right. Whisper a truth in their ear. Jordan smirked and leaned over to Mason, whispering something that made Mason snort. Claire went next. Point to the player you trust the least. They draw 2 cards. She pointed at Ethan, laughing. You're the one who brought the creepy game. Ethan drew his first card. Place your hand on the circle. Close your eyes until your next turn. He sighed and rested his hand on the emblem in the center of the cloth, closing his eyes. When he opened them again, everyone was staring at him. What? He asked. Claire's face was pale. Your hand. It sank into the cloth, like it wasn't solid. Ethan looked down. The cloth was flat. You're imagining things. But Mason's voice was low, uneasy. No, I saw it too. The game went on. The cards grew stranger. Jordan drew one that said, Speak only in questions until your next turn. Claire's said, Switch pieces with another player. Do not break eye contact while you do. Some were just odd, but others were unsettling. Name something you fear. It will be added to the game. When Mason read that aloud, the lights in the room flickered. By the 6th round, the circle on the cloth had started to glow faintly. None of them had noticed it happening. It was just brighter now, and the shapes of the wooden pieces seemed to be fitting into specific spots along the emblem. Okay, this is weird, Claire said, leaning back. Let's just stop. Ethan shook his head, half joking, half serious. Rules say we can't stop until the circle's complete. But when Claire reached for the deck to put it away, the cards wouldn't move. It was like they were glued to the table. Jordan tried lifting the cloth. It wouldn't budge. And then Mason drew his next card. Choose a player. They will take your place. What does that even mean? He muttered. The lights flickered again. By the time the grandfather clock in Ethan's hallway chimed 11, the game had taken on a strange, heavy atmosphere. The air felt warmer, like they'd been sitting in a closed room for hours without ventilation. The circle on the cloth was nearly complete, but one piece was missing, a small triangular wedge. Ethan drew the next card. The missing piece is outside. You have 3 minutes. A knock sounded at the door. The knock came again. 3 slow thuds. Not the kind of knock you'd hear from a neighbor. More like someone knocking with their knuckles pressed flat. Ethan looked at the others. No one moved. Guess that's my cue, he said, forcing a smirk, but his voice cracked slightly. He stood, crossed the living room, and opened the door. The hallway beyond was empty. Only the hum of the building's lights and the faint smell of dust greeted him. But when he looked down, he saw it. The triangular wedge. It was made of the same dark wood as the other pieces, and when he bent to pick it up, it felt strangely warm, like it had been sitting in sunlight. Ethan stepped back inside. Got it. Easy. But when he turned toward the table, his apartment felt wrong. The lighting was dimmer, like the bulbs were running on half power. The air was thicker. And behind his friends, the shadows along the wall seemed a little too dark, a little too deep. He set the piece onto the circle. The moment it touched the cloth, it clicked into place with a sound too loud for such a small object, like a lock being turned. The circle flared, bright white, then pulsed down to a dim glow. Jordan squinted at it. Is that moving? The emblem was shifting now, the triangles slowly rotating, the dot in the center swelling outward into a tiny hole. The hole deepened until it was pure black. and then the cards shuffled themselves. Claire leaned back. Nope, nope, we're done. But a card slid from the deck on its own, flipping face up. The text was in the same uneven typewriter font. Round 2 begins. The second round. The rules hadn't changed, at least not on paper, but the cards were different now. The first one Mason drew read, "There is someone behind you. Do not turn around." His jaw tightened. Funny. Jordan chuckled, but it died quickly when Mason's eyes began to water. "I'm serious. I feel them breathing." Claire reached out, but before she could touch him, the card in front of Jordan slid toward him. "Take the piece from the player to your left. Do not use your hands." Jordan looked at Mason, who had a carved piece in front of him. This is gross." He leaned down, gripping the piece between his teeth and pulling it away. Mason shivered. When it was Claire's turn, her card read, "You may leave the game if you open the door. Do not look outside." She froze. "So, I could just walk away?" Ethan glanced at the clock, 11:14. The shopkeeper's warning echoed in his head. "Don't play past midnight." "You shouldn't," he said. Claire ignored him, stood, and walked to the door. She turned the handle. A sound seeped in immediately, a low, vibrating hum, like a distant engine. The air coming through the crack was cold, damp. Claire hesitated, then slammed the door shut and sat back down. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. The game sped up after that, the cards coming faster, each one stranger than the last. Place a piece into the circle without breaking eye contact with the player you fear most. Something in this room is not what it seems. Name it. The shadows are listening. Speak softly. By the time it reached Ethan again, the black hole in the circle was large enough to swallow a coin. His card read, "Offer something of yourself to the game." The text shifted as he read it, and the last word became, "Forever." A chill spread through him. What does that even mean? But the others were staring. Not at him, but at his right hand. His pinky finger had gone pale, almost translucent, the flesh blurring at the edges. "Ethan," Claire whispered, "you're fading." The offer panic set in fast. Ethan clenched his fist, but it didn't help. The pale transparency crept toward his palm. Jordan swore. "Put something else in. A piece. A card. Something." Ethan grabbed one of the spare wooden pieces and shoved it toward the hole in the circle. The moment it touched the cloth, his hand solidified again, but the piece sank into the blackness and was gone. The hole pulsed, just a little bigger than before. Mason muttered, "This isn't a game. This is some kind of..." The lights flickered violently, and when they steadied, there was something in the corner of the room. Tall, thin, bent in the middle like its spine had too many joints. Its head brushed the ceiling, but it had no face, only a smooth, pale surface. It was turned toward the table. No one moved. The deck of cards slid another one forward, toward Mason. He didn't want to touch it, but the text glowed faintly, demanding to be read. "Invite it to play." Mason's lips trembled. "Can't even..." The thing stepped forward. The thing's footsteps were wrong. Not heavy, not light, but delayed. Each movement came a heartbeat after its body shifted, like it was remembering to mimic walking. It stopped at the edge of the table. The air around it was colder. The smell of damp soil and something metallic crept in. Mason's voice was a whisper. "We don't even have enough chairs." The creature crouched in one fluid motion, knees bending the wrong way, and lowered itself onto the floor. Its smooth, pale head tilted toward the deck of cards. A single card slid out on its own and turned over. The typewriter font was the same. "You may take your turn." It reached out a hand, long, jointless fingers, skin stretched too tight. When they touched the card, the surface rippled like water. The text changed. Mason leaned forward to read it, then stopped. His face went pale. It says my name. No one else could see the words. Just blank cardstock. Mason swallowed hard. It wants something I can't say. The thing turned its blank face toward him. The apartment changes. The second the creature finished its turn, the circle glowed brighter. The black hole in the center widened to the size of a saucer. The edges of the wooden table seemed to curve downward toward it, like the cloth was pulling everything inward. Jordan stood abruptly. We're not finishing this. We flip the table, burn the game. The moment his hand touched the cloth, his wrist locked in place. He yelped, jerking back, but his skin peeled from the fabric like it had been glued. The marks it left weren't burns. They were faint, spiraling patterns, almost like the emblem itself. Claire grabbed him, pulling him back. "Don't touch it again!" The creature's turn was over. The deck slid a card toward Claire. She read it aloud, voice shaking. "Something here doesn't belong. Remove it." Her eyes darted around the room. The chairs, the mugs, the record player. Finally, her gaze landed on the photo frame on Ethan's shelf. She stood, grabbed it, and hurled it toward the wall. It didn't break. Instead, it bent midair, folding in on itself like paper, before vanishing. Ethan's stomach dropped. That was a picture of me and my sister. Claire didn't answer. She just sat back down, staring at the table. The creature speaks. When it came to the creature's next turn, something impossible happened. It spoke. Not in a voice, exactly. More like the sound of a memory forcing itself into your head. "You invited me. I will stay until the circle is complete." All four of them heard it at once. The voice was cold, precise, and without emotion. Ethan forced himself to ask, "What happens when it's complete?" The voice returned instantly. "One will leave. 3 will stay." Mason's breath caught. "Stay. Here." No answer. The spiral turns. The second round continued, each card dragging them further from normal reality. Jordan's card. Draw the curtains. Do not look outside until told. When he touched the fabric, it was damp. Something moved behind it, slow and heavy. Claire's card. Whisper your worst memory into the hole. The black space drank her words, and her lips turned pale. Mason's card. Exchange places with the nearest shadow. His body blurred, flickered, and for 3 terrifying seconds, he was nothing but darkness on the wall before solidifying again. But slightly out of breath, like he'd been somewhere far away. The circle was almost full again. Just 2 empty spaces left. The hole in the center was now wide enough for a hand to pass through. When Ethan's turn came, his card was different. The font was jagged, the letters uneven. Look inside. The glimpse. He didn't want to. Every instinct screamed, don't. But his fingers moved on their own. He leaned over the hole. At first, it was just darkness. Then, his eyes adjusted, and he saw a table. Their table. But around it sat only 3 players, himself, the creature, and someone whose face was blurred into static. The 4th chair was empty, and then something in the dark turned its head upward, meeting his gaze. Ethan jerked back. "We need to finish this. Now." The grandfather clock in the hall began to chime. 11:30. The creature's next card slid toward it. This time, the text appeared in red. "Choose who stays." It tilted its head toward the group and tapped the table twice. The circle pulsed. The lights dimmed. Jordan whispered, "I think it just chose." The table vibrated. The pieces rattled against the cloth like teeth chattering in the cold. Jordan's voice cracked. "It just picked me, didn't it?" No one answered. The deck pushed a card toward him anyway. "Bleed into the circle." Jordan shoved his chair back. "Number I'm not." His nose began to drip. Thick, dark blood poured out faster than it should have, splattering onto the black cloth. The second it touched the emblem, the circle drank it, and the glow brightened to a sharp, burning white. Jordan gasped, clutching his face. It took something. The hole widened, pulling the wooden pieces toward it. One slid in and vanished. The collapse starts. The walls of Ethan's apartment groaned. Not like a settling building, more like they were being pushed from the other side. A long, thin crack ran up one corner, and something wet began to seep through it. Claire's turn came next. Her card slid forward. "Break something you love?" She stared at Ethan for a long moment before grabbing the record player and smashing it against the table. The sound of breaking plastic was sharp, but the circle seemed to like it. The glow pulsed faster. The crack in the wall split wider. A hand, gray, too many knuckles, slipped through and gripped the edge. Another followed. The creature's choice. The faceless thing took its turn without touching the deck. The card appeared in front of it by itself. The text formed slowly. "Remove one from the game now." It tilted its head toward Mason. The floor under Mason's chair turned liquid black. Before anyone could move, the chair and Mason sank halfway into it. His scream cut short as the surface closed over him like water sealing. His chair was gone. His space at the table was empty. Claire's breathing was ragged. "We're next. It's not going to stop." The pull Ethan's card slid forward. "Place both hands in the circle until the next turn." He obeyed, and instantly his fingers locked in place. The surface under his palms softened, sinking, dragging. He felt the cold air from inside the hole curling up his arms. While he was trapped, Jordan drew his next card. "Something is trying to get in. Let it." The crack in the wall tore open like wet paper. A shape crawled through, tall, twisted, but wrong in a different way than the faceless thing. This one had too many joints in its arms, a mouth that opened sideways, and no eyes. It scuttled to the table on all fours and stopped at the empty chair Mason had left behind. The game didn't even react, like it had been expecting it. Blood and Wood Claire's next card. Take something from another player. Keep it. She looked at Ethan. Then, with a sudden sharp motion, she grabbed the wooden piece in front of him and pressed it to her chest. The piece sank into her like water. Her skin rippled where it vanished. Ethan felt a chunk of his own memory vanish with it. His sister's name, gone. The hole in the circle pulsed larger, now almost a foot across. The edges of the table sagged toward it. The clock strikes. The grandfather clock in the hall began its slow, echoing chime for 11:55. 5 minutes until midnight. The faceless thing played its turn. Its card read, "Choose who leaves early." It pointed one long finger at Jordan. The floor under Jordan's chair buckled, then flipped upward violently, slamming him into the ceiling. When he fell, he didn't hit the ground. He fell through it, his body vanishing into blackness. Only Ethan, Claire, and the two inhuman players remained. The final stretch. Ethan's hands released. His card slid forward. Last round. Complete the circle. Claire's face was wet with tears. What happens if we don't? The faceless thing's voice filled their heads again. Then no one leaves. The cracks in the apartment spread in all directions now. Thin black tendrils crawling along the floor and ceiling. Every piece on the cloth rattled toward the final empty space in the circle. But before they could place it, the sideways-mouthed creature reached out and snatched it up. It held the piece above the hole. The sideways-mouthed creature dangled the last piece over the black hole in the circle. The faceless thing turned its head toward it, but didn't move. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. Midnight was minutes away. "Put it in!" Claire shouted. The creature's mouth opened wider, its jaw splitting all the way to the base of its neck. It dropped the piece, but not into the circle. It tossed it into the air. Ethan lunged for it. Claire lunged too. Their hands collided mid-reach, knocking it away. It landed on the cloth, teetered, and began to slide toward the hole. Ethan dove, catching it just before it vanished. The hole hissed, actually hissed, like something in the dark was angry. The last turns. The deck slid a card toward Claire. Take the final turn, or be taken. Her lip trembled. It's me. It wants me to finish it. Ethan stared at the piece in his hand. If you do it, you might be the one who leaves. Claire shook her head. Or I'm the one who stays. The creatures watched silently, heads tilted at matching angles. Claire reached toward the circle. The cloth seemed to ripple under her hand, pulling the piece in faster. The moment it touched the empty space, the circle sealed. The glow burst into blinding white. The hole expanded outward in a violent rush, swallowing the table, the chairs, the walls. The apartment was gone in seconds, replaced by a void so deep it had no up or down. Ethan was weightless. He could see Claire floating across from him, hair drifting like she was underwater. The two creatures loomed above them, impossibly tall now, their limbs stretching into the dark. The choice. A voice filled the space, not from the creatures, but from everywhere at once. One leaves, three stay. The faceless thing raised one long finger and pointed at Ethan. Claire's scream echoed in the dark. No! Take me instead! Choice is made. A pull yanked Ethan backward, sharp and absolute. The darkness tore away like wet paper, and he fell through, landing hard on the floor of his apartment. Everything was normal. The table was bare. The string lights glowed softly. The clock on the wall read 12:01. But there was only one chair at the table. Ethan searched the apartment for hours, calling their names. No answer. No sign they'd ever been there. The game was gone. No black box, no cards, no pieces. Just a faint circle-shaped imprint in the wood where the cloth had been. When he finally looked out the window, his stomach turned cold. In the reflection, he could see his living room. But behind him were three silhouettes seated at a table, waiting. That's it, guys. End of the video. Please like and subscribe if you liked this video. Comment your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and have a scary night.